the one thing I want to do now, before I generate any other methods here, and I do want to generate hash code equals toString, methods like that, is I want to tweak this constructor. All right. And notice, by the way, notice that the warnings have gone here. All right. There's no longer any warning saying this field is never used because it's used in the getter methods. All right. So I'm going to go save that. And like I said, I want to generate some more things concerning this constructor. And what I want to do is I want to generate, I want to throw exceptions if any of these arguments are not what I want. All right. So the first thing I want to do is I don't want any of these fields to be null. I don't like nulls, and if I can avoid nulls in my program, I try to do so at all costs. So I'm going to create an exception if any of these fields are null. And the way I do that is right before this constructor here, I'm just going to say if name equals null or birthday equals null, or gender equals null, or email address equals null. If any of those things equal null, I'm going to throw a null pointer exception. And the way I do that is I just say throw new null pointer exception. Okay, but I don't want to stop there. I also want to throw an illegal argument exception if any of these arguments are not what I want. So for example, I don't want the name argument, which is right there, the name argument. I don't want that to be the empty string. Okay, I want to say, hey, that's not a valid name argument. For birthday, I want it to be within certain dates. I don't want people to enter a birthday that is later than today's birthday, for example. For gender, we're okay for gender because the only values you can have are male and female. So enum types are kind of nice that way, or you usually don't get, you have to check if they're null still, but you don't have to check for illegal argument exceptions. An email address, again, I don't want the empty string for that. So let's go ahead and write that condition. So let's see, what did I say? I said name should not be the empty string. And the first instinct is to do something like that, like this. So name does not equal quote, quote. Unfortunately, name is an immutable type, or string is immutable. And the rule of thumb here is to not use equals equals and not equals with immutable types. And that's because what this is saying is name does not equal the object empty string. And those can be two different objects. So even if name is the empty string, it might not equal this empty string. All right. I'm not going to go into detail in that. If you want to read up on that, read Joshua Bloch's book, Effective Java, where he talks about object initialization. Okay. But suffice it to say, you shouldn't use equals equals and you shouldn't use not equals with immutable types. Okay, so I'm going to change this to if name And in fact, I guess I wanted equals. I didn't want equals anyway. I didn't want not equals anyway. Because I want to say if name equals the empty string, then throw an illegal argument exception. All right. So if name equals empty string, throw an illegal argument exception. But I'm just going to put all my conditions here, and I'm just going to make one big condition statement. So if name equals empty string, throw an illegal argument exception. I'm going to close that off there, and I'm just going to say throw new illegal argument exception here. And when I hit return on that, it takes me to the next tab over. So I'm just going to line everything up here. So if name equals empty string, I want to throw illegal argument exception. What else? Well, if birthday is, let me think here. Let's say if the birthday entered is before January 1st, 1800. Okay, so we don't want to enter any real old birthdays. So I'm just going to say if birthday, and I use the compare to for this, and the way I get a particular date is I use isochronology. That is Java 8's way of, it has a singleton class where I can get, I spelled that wrong, where I can get dates. Isochronology. All right, let's see what I'm doing wrong here. Got it right there. Oh, I missed the R. Okay. Fair enough. The reason I know that is because when I did the dot, it didn't give me any hints. Now it's giving me hints. Okay, so isochronology, instance, date, and I want the one that takes a year, a month, and a day. Okay, so if birthday is less than January 1st, 1800, I want to throw an illegal argument exception. So less than, a way of writing that is when you do the compare to, it should be less than 0. Okay, so if birthday is less than January 1st, 1800, it's going to throw illegal argument exception. Likewise, I want to say if birthday is greater than today's date, also throw an illegal argument exception. Okay, so I do that by saying birthday compare to, and then I got to put in this isochronology thing. I happen to know that it's in the get age thing, so I'm just going to copy it from there. And it's isochronology.instance.date now is today's date. And I'm going to throw an exception if birthday is greater than that. So the compare to greater than 0 is what that means. And what else? I don't have to throw anything for gender because I've already checked if gender is null, so I'm good there. So now I'm going to check email. Email address equals empty string. I'm going to throw it. And I'm going to do one more. I'm going to do email address. I want to have an @ in the email address. So if the email address does not have an @ I'm going to throw an illegal argument exception too. And the way I can do that is use a contains. So I can say email address contains @ So I want to say if that's not true, if email address does not contain an @ symbol, then I'm going to throw an illegal argument exception. And let's see, what is wrong here? Why is it giving me these errors? Let me comment that out. I didn't think it gave me an error. Doesn't like the or here. Okay, let's just see. The less than operator is undefined for that, I think. Okay, I am put my parentheses in the wrong place there. Okay, I've got that right. Now what? The operator less than is undefined for argument types local date instance. Well, okay, I did the same thing over there. All right. Okay, fantastic. Now I can go back and do that. I'll comment in that line. And there we go. So if any of these situations hold, I'm going to throw an illegal argument exception. If any of this stuff is null, I'm going to throw a null pointer exception. All right. There's one last thing I want to do here. I want to clean up these conditions a little bit. I've got a constructor here that it's not terribly hard to read, but I just want to make it a little bit easier to read. So I'm going to just extract these conditions into a method. And there's a pretty easy way to do that in Java. So I'm just going to highlight that first condition that throws a null pointer exception. And I'm going to go to refactor. And I'm going to go to extract method. All right, and it gives me the variables that I'm going to need in that method. I'm going to make it private. And I'm going to call that method any are null. Because if any of these arguments are null, I want it to return true. So this is a condition, so it automatically knows that this is going to have to be a Boolean method. All right, so if any of these things are null, I want to return true. If all of them are non-null, then it returns false. Okay? That's the only way it returns false, if all of them are non-null. So if any of them are null, it returns true. Let's go ahead and extract that. And there you go. Here is it's extracted the method to this any or are null method. Okay, and it replaced these conditions with any or null. It looks, almost as long there, but I prefer this way rather than the other way. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to highlight this condition. I'm going to refactor that, extract the method, and I'm going to call this method any are invalid. And notice that it sees that you only need arguments name, birthday, and email address. You don't need gender in here because gender cannot be invalid because there are only two. It's an enum type. There are only two constants, and both of those constants are valid. All right. So I'm going to go ahead, and you can see that it significantly reduces the size of that one. Okay, in fact, I reduced it enough where I'm just going to put all of this on one line. Okay, so if any of these things are null, I'm going to throw a null pointer exception. If any of these things are invalid, I'm going to throw an illegal argument exception.